Hello, everyone. Resuming, we're live now. Welcome to this interesting conversation as part of the the Diversity Summit for the Future Awards Festival. It is a panel session discussing alternative style and sounds and succeeding while staying true to yourself here. And that can be a very, very challenging thing. But do be welcome. It is the MTV-based panel session. And we're quite excited and appreciate that you've been able to find time to join us on this Saturday. I know people want to chill and be down and relaxing, but it's all good. I am Folu Storms, and I'm a VJ, I'm an actor, and a number of other things besides. And I do a lot of work with the different Viacom, CBS, Africa Networks brands. And I've been asked to kind of help moderate this particular session. So what MTV has done, they brought together an amazing panel of young, brilliant industry professionals and stakeholders, people that impact, and to discuss the impact of alternative music, a genre that we also like to call Alte over here in Nigeria. And these guys are some of the kings and queens of the Alte movement in general. I think it's a lifestyle movement as well. Now, they will be sharing their thoughts on the future of the genre in the industry and over the next few years, what to expect. But before we dive in with the panel introductions, I would like to emphasize that the goal today is to define what that alternative music genre is, how it is perceived in this market, and of course, the approach that creatives and talents use to demonstrate or showcase their originality. So moving swiftly on to the business of today, permit me to introduce our panelists for today's session. We have got the Toby Mohammed, the founder and creative genius behind the famous series of Block Party. That's the mainland Block Party, Island Black Party, Capital Block, everything block. Yeah. Big shout out to Toby there. Toby, say hi to everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Excellent. Thank you for that. We have also got a good girl, LA, in the building. Now, she's one of Nigeria's budding alternative music artists, and she is phenomenal. Her voice is so excellent. We love it. Hi, good girl, LA. Say
hi,
hi to everyone.
This is good girl. How you doing? Thank you so much for having me.
And then Amarachi was with us, but she'll be coming back in just a second. Amarachi Nwosu, she's a visual storyteller. She's on here as a panelist, and she's been doing some dope visual storytelling work using different media formats. I stalk her a little bit on Instagram, at least I did in the past. She's going to be sharing some things with us. And then our very own Piroro, as I like to call him, is our very own Peter Elosia, who is the digital media coordinator for Viacom CBS. Welcome, Peter. Thank you for being a part of this.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Perfect.
We can hear you perfectly. It's great. So let's jump into this, all right? This Alte movement, the alternative sound. What exactly is it? And Peter, I'm going to start with you. I'm coming from almost like a channel perspective. And, and you do a lot of work. You see what MTV Base does. What is your take on the term alternative music? Or Alte music, or Alte music. I mean, depending on where
okay, so personally, for me, I'm not really a fan of calling music in Nigeria alternative music, first of all, to start with, because the question starts from what really is, what is mainstream music that the alternative sound is being alternated from? If we say that, we could probably say, okay, the mainstream music is probably Afrobeat. And I'm in the category of people that always ask, what really is Afrobeat? What is Afrobeat with an S? And I feel like Afrobeat personally is a lazy term to classify music in general. I personally do not believe there's a type of music or there's a sound of music called Afrobeat, like an S. So we'll have the likes of Davido, Wizkid, Burna Boy, who just released albums as at this year. And my personal favorite on Davido's album is an Amapiano song. So you necessarily won't call that Afrobeat. Okay. Although I remember seeing an interview with Oxlade, shout out to Oxlade, where he spoke about Afrobeat not being like a genre of music, but it's kind of like a way of life. That is basically how I feel about the Alte culture, Alte community. I don't believe there's a sound called Alte music. However, I do believe there's a culture called Alte culture. I see it as there's an Alte culture, Alte style. Basically, this is a platform where this artists kind of express themselves alternatively, either through their music videos, either through their fashion, basically through the way they dress and approach things generally. But for
okay, so it's almost like an
basically,
alternative lifestyle versus
yes,
necessarily an
exactly.
alternative genre.
Because where do you
music.
really classify, like, what sound are you classifying as alternative, to be honest, like in terms of Nigeria? Like, what are we alternating from? That is what to say. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So, Toby, good girl, do you agree with that? Do you not believe that there is a popular African Afrobeats, this generic, as Peter said, what does that mean? But do you think that there is no alternative sound to the mainstream? What is the mainstream? What is the Afrobeats? What is it? How do you guys feel about that? Do you agree?
Here's the thing. I think music is very, very universal. Like you can never put it in a box. And nowadays, I grew up listening to. I was first born in, like, let's say I was first born in Nigeria. So I grew up listening to Konto, Marvelous, Benji, and a lot of these guys. And then I also have Beyonce CDs. I have Two-Face CDs. I have Wizkid CDs. And then you grew up with listening to all that, and definitely you're Nigerian already. Like the sound is already Nigerian. You cannot run away from it. It's already Nigerian. So however you choose to interpret your art, it's just music. And I don't think there is really that mainstream still exists in a way in Nigeria, because this is Africa, and music that would get across to people would always still get the first place on the table. But then I feel like music is out of the box right now. It's out of the box right now.
Okay.
It is.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you. Toby, did you want to add anything, or you good?
The real world, like the real origin of this alter thing, actually, like, I mean, from how I know it, is really like it started with Bud, back in 2014. We had this song, I think it was Paper featuring Runtime or something, or Phantom, like, and it was like, I'm an alter guy. So I think that the real genesis of that was just like, the way it really started was, there was like a mainstream market, like guys that actually did make music then that everybody used to listen to, like pop guys, you know what I mean, like Afro pop as the sound would be called, right? And then there was these guys that just came and they didn't have like a lot of fans, just because really, like, from the fact that there was no like money for marketing at the time. So these were like, I'll call them the internet generation. Like, a lot of them are just moved back from England or America, as the case is. I mean, a lot of them were England anyway, and I just moved back, and it was just like a slang back. Like, so alter would be like alternative and authentic, if that makes any sense. It's just like, I'm an alter. I'm not. I can't. It's almost like, you know what? I can't compete on this mainstream level. So me, I'm just in my lane. Do you get what I mean? That's kind of how it started, like, and it just like became like a music genre, because these guys also were like doing music and all of that. So I feel like that's kind of like what the word alter really, like, that's how it came about. And then now it's kind of like just grown into like different things. So yeah.
That's you. Okay, Madu. Thank you very much for that. Big shout out to Bodge, being credited there with a little bit of the early days of the alter movement. I've got to say welcome to Amarachi. She's rejoined us. Amarachi Nwosu, a very incredible visual storyteller. Hi, Amarachi. Can you hear us? Are you with us? Do you want to say hi? Oh, I think your mic is muted. If you can hear us, please unmute your microphone. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep moving on.
Hi, everybody.
There you are.
So
Okay, go ahead.
I've been having a little bit of technical difficulties, but hopefully you can at least hear me. I'm not sure. Can you see me now?
Nah, well.
No, but that's fine. We'll go with your words of wisdom. That's what's important here. Fantastic. So, Amarachi, I was discussing with people, talking about alternative music and what that is. And Toby, very nice, he's going to segue into the question I have for you, which is basically referring to the fact that alternative was something that was a little bit different, off kilter to the norm. It was happening. And so because they felt like, perhaps some artists felt like they couldn't keep up with that mainstream current, this is what's happening. They're like, well, there's an alternative, and this is me, this is my lane, that's where I'm going to stay. So I wonder whether you think that there is pressure on artists to change their style of music to fit the current market. Because for this to be a movement and for this to be a thing that we're talking about and trying to figure out how to stay true to ourselves, with this alter movement, I wonder, does that mean therefore that there is some kind of pressure for artists to do things the same way?
Yes, I mean, I really think that there is a pressure in some capacity for people to align with the mainstream sound if they want to think about capital, because I think it comes down to the fact of like people wanting to survive and be able to make money. And if you think about what's being played on the radio, 9 times out of 10, most of the time it's aligning with the Afrobeat sound. So I feel like now we're in a space where we're being exposed to alternative artists sound, and we're learning to appreciate it. But I think it's also like building the taste palette of the mass audience until there can be a space for alternative artists to also like book shows and gigs at a mass level, and not just curated events here and there, but actually be respected on the level someone who's working around a more mainstream sound is. And I think it's slowly happening, but I feel like it's partially happening because there's global and international recognition that these alternative artists are getting, that maybe artists are maybe aligning with a sound that is more familiar may not be getting. So I think that's why people are starting to take it more seriously and say, okay, maybe we do need to invest in this space. But I think the pressure comes from capital and not being able to have access to that. So aligning with where you can make money and build your brand.
I see. Thank you for that. So artists in the building, good girl Ellie. Hey girl, how you feeling? Do you feel that you face any kind of specific pressures as an alternative artist, as an alter artist? Do you consider yourself an alternative artist?
Do I? What was the last question? Do
you consider yourself an alternative artist? If you do, what specific pressures do you feel that you face as an alternative artist?
I actually do not
Did you get that?
myself an alternative artist. No, I do not.
Okay, why not?
Because I really like to like do a lot of music. Like I love to do everything. I love to jump on like lots of sounds. Like I love to be experimental because it's music. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be spontaneous. So I love to do a lot of stuff. So I feel like putting it in that, calling it that, I actually do not consider myself one.
Is that, do you feel like you're being put in a box when that happens? Like, like this type of. Do you think that's actually an issue for people who
I just care about making music, so I don't even try to like put it in that box. So
Interesting. Peter, I'm going to go back to you. You know, you referenced something very interesting with David's album that came out and mentioned that one of the tracks was just, and I might be at the track, you particularly resonated with, or it's like your favorite one. And I find it interesting, especially considering what good girl Ellie said, like she doesn't consider herself in this box of alternative, artists, because like it or not, when we give people in music and styles labels, it does create a specific definition. And I wonder if even the mainstream artists like David really consider themselves just that, because the genre bending seems to be happening quite a lot for all genres. So are there even specific definitions of genres of styles of music now? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Everything is blending into each other.
Personally, I feel like a lot of people haven't been able to define their sound, and it goes back to the issue I have with the term of Afrobeat, because it kind of just feels like, oh, I'm a Nigerian artist from Africa. I just term my sound Afrobeat. Even on like platforms like Apple Music, for example, now when you look at the person's genre of like the name of the album, like the sound of the album, you either see things like world music, or you see things like alternative, or you see things like Afrobeat, for example. Like personally, the artists first of all themselves need to define what their sound is. Like I necessarily can't say. I really can't say what. Like I can hear. I can try to guess what this person's sound is sounding like. But if you don't define your genre from the onset, then I feel like that is where the problem is. So what Google Ellie basically said, putting things like alternative music it's kind of boxing. Like you kind of put it into a box. Why not define? So even in alternative music, like what genre of music do you do? Are you doing Afrofusion? And Burna Boy basically says his music is Afrofusion. Like he goes anywhere he goes. If you think that this with Burna Boy, tell him that he's an Afrofusion artist. He's not Afrobeat, because you need to kind of define what sound you are doing. I think that's the first step to kind of break down this box thing, to kind of say, okay, what genre of music do you do? I'm a pop artist, I'm an Afro pop artist, I'm a piano artist. You know, that is how I feel. That is my things.
Okay. Toby Mohammed, as an artist manager to some of the biggest, I'm going to still use the term because it's in our definition, alt-tech artists in Nigeria, do you find that there is a struggle for talents or for artists, first of all, to define themselves? Does that affect them in any way? And really to stay true to themselves? Because I wonder if people are rejecting the definition or accepting it one way or another, what are you staying true to? Which is the self? Is it a personal self? Is it a business self? Is it the genre? Is it, you know, what the market expects? What do you find that artists struggle with in this respect?
For me, right, I think that there are just like so many there's so many angles to this, like perspective based, right? So they're just different angles, right? So like thinking about it, right, as I said, I like to go to like when it started. Like music is kind of good now. You know, the music business is actually amazing right now. Again, I mean, like artists don't actually like book shows in Nigeria would probably make let's say $5,000 in like a quarter. Like, you know what I mean? Which is okay. This wasn't the case in 2014. There was no way to even make that. You get what I mean? So at that time, right, it was almost like, you know, if I can't be a part of the big picture, I can create like a little thing for myself, or like a little bubble that I can actually operate in. Do you understand what I mean? It's like giving them like an idea of some sort. About there being pressure, yes, there is pressure, because think about it, then it was really just about, you know, booking shows and getting money. Do you understand what I mean? Like my artists haven't booked a show in the last 1 year. I mean, call it Corona, call it whatever, right? Because like events have to be bubbled seriously for you to even remember to book other artists. Do you understand what I mean? Because like if you're trying to do like a club in Benin, like people might not even know who Budge is. Maybe people will know who Budge is now because we've done the Abacadabra Jam, done a couple of songs with Tenny. But like ideally, people don't even know what these records are. But like if you check like the numbers and like on digital, like things like Simba have like what 10 million streams. You know, and these are real like streams. You get what I mean? Simba have 10 million streams. The second Make No Cost project has like what combined 25 million streams. You know what I mean? Like so, these artists are feeling good now, but like then that was.
Yes. So that's what I want to address. You know, because it's nice that the growth is happening now and we're having this conversation, and now there are a fair number of people who do know Budge. Yes, he may not be as popular as David, but you know, they do know him. But there are a number of people who are watching this right now who are young artists themselves, who are curious about this space. And how do you stay consistent? What is that thing that you give or that you tell artists for you? And Good Girl LA, when he's done, maybe you want to chip in. Like for you, how did you start defining and figuring out what would help you stay true to you? Because as someone who I consider myself to be a lover of music, I just appreciate good sound. I can smell and see and feel when somebody and an artist is not being genuine. When they're saying, well, this one's selling right now, this is how it's supposed to look, like this one they enter, great dance moves, great dance, this thing. Let's do, you know, but we know that artists is pressure. And we know that a lot of people succumb to the pressure. Outside of it, it's very easy to say, you shouldn't be yourself. But the truth is, when you're looking at what is selling, and when you're looking at the people who are who have top of mind talkability, when you're looking at those artists, for artists who perhaps have an alternative style of music, or an alternative presentation, alternative lifestyle that's present in how they present themselves. I mean,
like like you said,
I'm actually
really important, just about like not like being able to tell when somebody's not being authentic with themselves. And like to me, my biggest advice that I give to any developing artist is just like figure out who you are and stay true to that. Because along the way, you're gonna get so many circumstances that are gonna pull away from being your authentic self and guide you in a direction that's not true to you. And eventually you're going to be miserable in that space, and people are going to recognize when it's not true to you. So I always say, like, you know, find that path. And I think for any alternative artist, it just starts with, again, understanding what your sound is. And like Peter was saying earlier, identifying what sounds you like to play with. I feel like why alternative is unique is the fact that you're not limited to a specific sound. There's a difference between alt and alternative, because alternative is a box where exists under, because you can have Afrofusion that under alternative music because it's traditional Afrobeat. Unless you're Fela Kuti, you're not making the original sound. And so everybody is moving. So it could be Afro pop, etc. Peter was saying, we need to develop those genres. We need to be able to identify with different sounds, not limit ourselves, because we end up putting everything under one name, and then everybody thinks that's what it is unless they do their research, and you wonder why a listener who's not in the community may be confused. So I think, we do need to find ways to express like how we feel, but I know as an artist, it's really hard to just push yourself into one box, because you don't identify with one. So what I would say is like create that thing for you. What's that thing? One thing again, like I'm also a fan of Good Girl, and like she's amazing. I'm happy to be here on this conversation with her because I haven't connected with her in real life, and so for me, I know her through her music. And to me, while somebody can look at that and be like, "Oh, this is a traditional Afrobeat sound," it's like, no, she's bringing her own energy. So if she decides the genre that this is, and she calls it that, that's what it's going to be called. That's what I'm going to identify that sound as. But I feel like, it takes artists being able to be like Werner and being like, look, this is Afrofusion. He's branding that sound as is. So it's like, it really comes down to branding a genre and developing how you identify with that genre. And I think in hip hop, we see a lot of that, where it's like, we have hip hop, but we have trap rock, we have so many different styles. We have boom bap hip hop, 90s hip hop, we have country hip hop. There's so many different layers of hip hop, and we're okay with it being complex. To also be okay with not having one genre that we all identify with, and being just cool with creating something new and allowing that to be validated in the space. So I think a lot of the times, just within our culture, sometimes we don't like things that are changing a traditional approach, but we have to be willing to say, you know what, we're going to take the risk and we're going to change how this is seen. But I think it takes time. But again, as gatekeepers, we also have a role to be like, okay, yeah, I like what you're doing. If this is what it's called, I'm going to respect it as that. So everybody plays a role, whether you're behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, like just being able to say, like, this is an alternative style, and this is, this is ultimately something that's of.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Amarachi. A lot to unpack there. A lot. Any thoughts, Peter, on that, or Toby? Because I saw you responding.
Yeah,
there was some cues there,
right? I feel like it's almost like you said, Polly. You said something about staying true to yourself. Do you understand what I mean? Like, you need to understand that this is a business. Yeah. No matter how you look at it, you understand what I mean? Like, I believe, like, Good Girl early right here, she's my friend, like, I've seen Good Girl early, like, she's probably the hardest worker. You know what I mean? Like, with this stuff. Like, it's only right that Good Girl actually makes money through this. You understand what I mean? It's probably only right that she makes, like, serious money from this, right? And when I started with Buzz, I'll use that as my case study because, like, I'll only give what I've seen or grown with, right? I know that there's so many times I've actually told Buzz, I'm actually guilty of that, right? There are so many times that I've actually told Buzz that, you know what, I didn't want to try to do this type of sound or try to work with this producer. Because Buzz always stayed true. Like, he always said, oh, don't worry, bro. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, we just decided to, like, do what we're doing and just stay excellent. Like, you know, every day we need to make sure that we're actually crossing a new hurdle. Working with you guys. There was a time when Buzz was in England for like 8 months. I was like, bro, we're burning money, we're here. And after that, we did a song with Skepta, and he came back and he's like, you know what? I told you I knew what I was doing. Do you understand what I mean? And then his Spotify followers go from like maybe 57,000 listeners to like maybe 150K. Do you understand what I mean? So at the end of the day, as an alternative artist, the things that I learned is just like, you have to start doing like proper business development. Do you get what I mean? Like, just stay excellent at what you're doing, and every day, like, just try to like expand your circle, like just a little bit more. And then that just like helps you more. Like, we just dropped a record, for example, with Davido and Mr. Easy, right? That was intentional. Do you understand what I mean? Like, it took us like 2 months to clear the song with Easy's team, and we're giving them like a chunk of royalties from that. But guess what? Buddy's his monthly listeners on Spotify have gone from like 250K to like 460K. Do you get what I mean? Like, so that just expands, like, and the thing about music is, at the end of the day, it's business, right? So it's like when you have a new song and you have new listeners, that immediately like trickles down to like your old song. Do you know what I mean? So even if you have like a deal with like a company, like say for example, Warner or Sony or whatever, right? The songs that you still play and you have rights to, right? If you have a big record, immediately like you have more money from your old record because you have like new fans and all that. So it's staying true and just like trying to like make sure that you're excellent at what you do. That's what I think.
Peter, do you want to chip in there?
Yeah, I think to just summarize what everyone said, because personally, so one thing for me is finding purpose, like what Amarachi has said, what Toby has said, what Google Ellie have said. It's just basically once you find purpose in like what you're doing, like with your music, like you know that this is your message and this is what you want to do, this is what you want to represent yourself. Even if there is pressure from the artist, from the market to make money. Once you find your purpose, you know that this is what you want to do. It's easier for you to stay true to yourself. So even if there's pressure from the market to basically say, oh, why not change your sound to this? And you're like, no, this is not the message I want to pass to this market. I believe that this is my sound, this is the message this is how I want to represent myself. And if you continue doing that, I believe that the market itself can change to your own purpose. Like the market itself can align to your purpose. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening with the likes of Embod. Like everyone now. I can testify to this. I'm going to say it here. I personally feel Amare had a very dope album. Like as sound,
fantastic.
Sound is amazing. And Amare, I've been following Amare for the longest time, and Amare has basically stayed true to her sound. And what I've basically said now is, I've met people recently where I've seen diehard fans of Amare in Nigeria here. Like there are people that are ready to spend a lot of money on Amare. And the honest truth is, if you feel like you're not making as much money as you should, those are the kind of people that you should be targeting.
So let me play devil's advocate here a little bit, because this is all great, and I love that everyone in this space is like, yeah, stay true to yourself. I'm gonna play devil's advocate because there's a reason that people are saying it to blow. You have to do this. So I'm just wondering, like, what are some of those why is that narrative still so pervasive? Is it that the alternative artists that are succeeding, that we call alternative, or that the general public perhaps perceives as a little bit different or a little bit left of field to what maybe they're more familiar with or what they know? Why is this perception there that you will suck Gary if you don't do what the market wants you to do? And I really want to, because I want us to very earnestly speak with people and keep it as 100 as possible, because there's a reason that they're saying that. What do you think those reasons are? And what are the ways that over time people can actively address those? Because I know if 1 year stay true to yourself, okay, but if you're just starting out and you don't know yet what truth is, what is the most base step that one artist, does it require collaboration between artists who are maybe a little bit more left of field? Do you think that artists will collaborate to ensure, Amarachi mentioned a few things about defining your own genres, making, like, I can stand here and call myself a Martian, but don't look at me and it's what they feel they want to call me, they're going to call me. So I wonder, how do you navigate that space truly? How does that space get navigated?
I mean, I guess just to tap in, I feel like you said, like, you're going to walk into a space and you're going to say something, you have to be able to understand the two things. So I feel like whatever you're going to do, would be great at that, to be able to have people identify and understand what it is. So you're right, coming out as a new artist, you probably need to collaborate with people that you feel like may have a sound to what you identify with, and it may not be under the genre that you ultimately want to create. But everything, I really feel like genres are subjective. At the same time, like, I think being able to really just, one, like Toby was saying earlier, identify on the business standpoint, like, okay, what is my approach? How am I going to push myself as an artist? How am I position myself? Because you're always going to get people who are going to say, oh, this is not good, or oh, this is not something that aligns the mainstream. But I feel like the artists who are flourishing now have just been like, you know what, I'm going to do it regardless. And she calls herself a rebel, because she's like, look, I may not have a sound that you've heard before, but this is a new sound that I'm bringing forward. So I feel like like when I think of alternative music, I think of people who are just taking risks. So I think you're gonna have
people who are taking risks. That's important.
Yes.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Good girl. I'm waiting for you. Is you I'm waiting for, because you're the artist. So I need to hear, and also because I find it very interesting. You know, whenever I see artists that you've managed to establish your own sound, and especially the songs that you are arguably most known for were not features. That they didn't feature a more popular artist, which typically is the path to up to blow. So for you, what was that process like? And I believe that you got did you get nominations at the Headies last year as well? Things like that. So how did that feel for you, getting that recognition? Because I don't know if you'd ever got recognized before that at a platform like that. So, you know, these little things, I think so many people would really love to hear from you and what your take is on that.
Okay. So I've actually really experienced, like, you know, you guys talking about like pressure, you know, people wanting you to do what the market wants you to do. Mm-hmm. You know, I remember my first song that I like really dropped like last year was Bless Me. Now, Bless Me is a song that has no percussion, it has no drums. It's a song that it's not a love song, it's not a party jam, but it's a song that is just like an inspirational song talking about like the girl, you know, trying to just get ahead, trying to just make it. So now, when I went to drop that song, and Arrows, everybody told me that, they're able to take it, or they told me, he doesn't have drums. Yeah, you know, Nigeria, Zamba.
No dance, no
Zamba. No, Zamba. Zamba. So I was like, but I know this song is special, so I just dropped it anyways. And from like, what song is this? What song is this? What song is this? It's on like millions of views on YouTube. And it's like, wow, that could actually happen. That's why I kept saying that music is like, it's boundless right now. Like, it could fly with like anything, as long as it's genuine, as long as it's real, as long as you trying to become the best version of yourself every day. But now here's the thing about the market. Now we're in Africa. We're in Africa, and the majority of the people are poor. If we're going to be honest, majority of the people are poor. Now that audience, that's the majority. Like when you're going to Tanzania and there's like a crowd in the stadium of like 50,000 people, most of them don't even really understand English, but they just love your music. Take artists like P Square, artists like of examples, like really going out and like having that experience. That is why they say you have to do that to, you know, get there, because that's what the market wants. The market is like the majority, most of them don't even have internet, like they don't even have Apple Music, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's why there's still that part of, you have to conform.
Okay.
But still, I believe that still staying real, you could break boundaries.
Okay, so I'm going to go with you on the staying real thing, because it's true. So what I am seeing now as well is that not just with musical artists, but alternative creatives of all walks of life, the demand for them has gone through the roof. People want, you know, alternative creatives to style videos, to do this. And Amarachi, as somebody who dabbles in different media style forms, and I know you take photographs, why do you think that the alternative creatives are so sought after in the industry today? What is that thing that makes the industry go, ooh, that's, you know, like an anti-design, that's who we want to come design the space and do all this stuff? What is that about?
I feel like it comes down to just like knowing that there's people kind of, again, going back to taking risks, thinking outside the box, and like pulling from different elements, whether it's mainstream or underground, and creating what they want. And like, I think we're over just like getting things you can always expect. Like, people want an element of uniqueness, innovation, and I think being alternative is constantly innovating. Because if you're in one lane and you're keeping through that lane, that's great. But then that's one lane where innovation is constantly being able to pull from these different lanes to create in time. So I feel like that's what I think people like about working with alternative creatives. And it's just interesting, like thinking of that as alternative, because let's say, like, for example, in Nigeria, you know, we'll call that and we'll label as alternative, but like you go to the US, for people, they just think creative, period. They don't think alternative. So that's where it's like, oh, so now this is mainstream in a creative space, maybe in a different country, but in Nigeria, it's alternative. So I feel like we also have to kind of like look at how we see what alternative is and how it may be defined one way in one space and different in another. But ultimately, it just comes down to innovation. So it's like whether you identify as alternative or not. I personally, like wouldn't identify specifically as alternative. It's other people who identify me as alternative. I'm staying true to myself, but that's different than what is mainstream. So understand that, I recognize why people say alternative, but if I'm thinking about myself, it's just like I'm Amarachi. I'm not trying to be anybody but me. And because of me, I'm one of one. Of course, it's going to be different. So I think it comes down to accepting that like we're not supposed to all look the same or follow one formula, and people are doing that. But I think it goes beyond alternative. It's just like, again, just creating your space and sticking with it and being consistent and good at that.
Yeah. I think I resonate with a lot of that. So as somebody who plays in a number of creative spaces myself, whether I'm a VJ for MTV and the likes, whether I'm doing voiceover artist work, I'm an actor, I'm a lawyer, there are all these things. And I know that often makes more traditionally minded people. And when I say traditionally minded, Nigeria, as much as we are very creative, I think inherently in our nature, the structure of the country and the way that we were raised, the people with marketing budget is marketing, it's not creativity. Is that Oga said we need this color, and that's the color the artist is supposed to wear. So this idea of one person being willing to push those boundaries and express to the limits of their creativity, perhaps that's a bit more like Amarachi said, where this, wow, so different, you're so alternative, these new kids. Yeah, that's where it do come from. But we've got several questions coming in, guys. Do drop questions for our fantastic panelists. I see Lavender really is straight in with the question saying, how do artists outside of the African continent enter the industry? I'm guessing the industry in the continent, maybe, I don't know, especially female rappers, when there isn't that established culture. Peter, I would love for you to weigh in on that. Do you think that there isn't an established culture, especially for female rappers? So how do artists outside of the African continent get into the industry? And then Todia, if you want to weigh in as well.
I'm trying to process the question. So how do artists out of Africa enter the industry, especially women rappers, when there isn't that established culture? So question is, what industry? Are you talking about the Nigerian industry, or like what industry specific are you looking at?
Yes.
Because
so Lamina, hit us up.
Because it doesn't. I don't think it's a must that your music must blow in Nigeria first of all. Like it doesn't really matter. Like Nigeria, yes, is a big fish and everything, but like why must it blow in Africa? You can sell out shows in Tanzania, you can sell out shows in Dubai, you can sell out shows in America. So why must you specify on one particular market? And I was going to say that when you're talking about something, I can't remember, you were mentioning something about you mentioned something. I was going to say something about insights. So as artists, it's very important that you know your insights, like you know what is working for you and what is not working for you at the back end. Especially considering now there's digital technology. So if I release a song, for example, Toby mentioned Budge, for example, having XYZ amount of plays. And Budge himself can look at the back end and say, okay, in Nigeria, I'm doing maybe 100,000. But in a place like Tanzania, I'm doing about 400,000. Definitely, that kind of changes like your direction in your marketing. So you should obviously probably go to Tanzania and kind of do a show in Tanzania. And then, from there, you can break even in the industry, double your marketing share, and then basically make it work for you. So I think the first thing, Lavender, is basically to kind of understand from your question, what industry do you mean? And if you're talking about Nigerian industry itself, I don't think Nigerian industry should be like your limit or like your own personal target. What works for you is what works for you, and then you can basically use that to double your market.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that, Peter. Ayodele Ayamfe is in. No, we're still, well, we've just got a few minutes left, to be honest with you. I do have to let the panelists go. But if you do have a question, do ask the question. Yes, sorry, go ahead, Amarachi.
I wanted to actually add to what Peter said, because I think he said something is important about data in general, where it's like, again, follow your data. Like your lane, your story is not going to look like anybody else's. That goes back to understanding that like you're one of one. When you're looking at your approach, your lane, and what your sound is achieving, you then understand, okay, like Peter was saying, my audience, I'm in Nigeria, but my audience might be in London, it might be in the US. So if that's the case, it's like, okay, how can I build capital, or how can I get partnerships that are going to allow me to engage with that audience and grow it? Because if 100 people there like me, why can't 100,000 people there like me? You know, and being able to say, okay, I'm going to act on this data, this information, and then that also allows you to make good business decisions as an artist, because then you are like, you understand what you need to align with and what aligns with you, because not everything is going to be for you. But look, if I'm an artist and my audience is in London, then I also might have to be like, okay, well, when I think about partnership or signing a record deal, maybe I should work with a distribution or a record label that has a great focus in those areas. Because some people may want to sign with a label in the UK, some people may want to sign with a label in the US based on their data and information and take their music beyond. But like Peter was saying, like, do not limit yourself to one space, because trust and believe, if I, for example, again, going back to, if I like, Good Girl LA's music, like, I can imagine 100 of my friends would like it, and they may not all be in one space. So now one person can share enough information to spread you globally. And so I think we have to stop looking at ourselves as one-dimensional. I think our sound is so global. Think about how much has started in Africa and gone to the world. The whole essence of rhythm and beat is African, and look at how that's transcended around the world. So understanding that we are not limited to one space, we have to also start seeing ourselves as worldwide Africans, but that comes with the whole culture, because like the girl was saying, like, we have to understand as a society where we are. Most people don't have that exposure, but I think us as people in media, us as storytellers in our own way, we have to tell that story to show that we're not one-dimensional, and we cannot just be in one space. We're complex, we're diverse, and that's why we're alternative, because we're not limiting our reach.
All right, thank you for that, Amarachi. Toby, do you have anything you want to add as we round up this session?
Yeah, so I mean, it's entertaining, very nice, learning new things as well, and perspective and all of that. But just to round it up, with being an artist, right, what you need to actually understand, with most artists who actually don't take seriously, they think it's a sprint, and it's not. It's actually a very long life. You understand what I mean? And there's really, like, as far as you can go when you're not trying to act like yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's why actually you're looking forward to going back home, because that's like your space. Do you know what I mean? So for music, you have to make sure it's your home, it's your space. You know what I mean? Like, you also need to understand that it's impossible to actually achieve 100% every time. So you can actually see some grades, right? So you get to see grade in some courses, right? It doesn't mean you're not going to get A the next year. Do you understand what I mean? You can't just be hot forever. There's a need to burning, like, you understand what I mean? So you need to just make sure that this is your little bubble, stay true to it. And that's the only way you can actually, like, stand like the test of time in the end. And then to answer Lavender, because you asked us questions, like, it's really like nobody sells anything for anybody on the platform industry. Do you understand what I mean? So you have to kind of like hack what works for you, like, create relationships. I tell people all the time, just like even like working in, like, the corporate world, relationships do a lot. Do you understand what I mean? Like, a lot of things that we've gotten or we've been able to get are like from relationships with people. So like identifying who can help you in this journey and making sure you guys have like a common point of connection and building it from there is actually what I think works best. I don't think that, I think that's all I have to say. I mean, it's been amazing talking to you guys.
All right, so Toby, Good Girl LA, Amarachi, Peter, I want to thank you so much for your time today on this panel. To everybody who's watching, this has been an MTV-based panel discussing alternative style and sounds and succeeding here where we are, where we find ourselves, finding our home, and just doing better that way. On behalf also of Viacom CBS Networks Africa, thank you guys for watching. Big shout out to the Future Awards, aka the Nobel Prize for Young Africans. You know, because we fly like that. I'm Folu Storms, officially signing out. Thank you guys so much for your time and your attention. I certainly don't take it for granted. As always, sending you all so much love and light and storms. It's a wrap.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, guys. Bye-bye.